Chapter 1485. Although the two of them were lucky enough to escape unscathed, they had been constantly flying in the air during their escape. At the last part of the journey, they had even used a secret technique to speed up their escape. The amount of energy they had consumed was even greater than the amount they had used in the previous battles. It was extremely difficult to recover, not to mention that their state of mind was slightly damaged after so many incidents. It was too difficult for them to break through their original bottleneck and reach the peak of supreme martial artist level. Miao Zhendong was dumbfounded. He wanted to cry but had no tears. At first, when they discovered the abnormality, they thought that there was a treasure at their doorstep and went to hunt for it excitedly. But in the end, they were completely wiped out. The two of them were also fleeing like stray dogs. It turned out that this was not the worst result. Damn it, the worst was yet to come. The enemy was actually using the battle experience to hunt them. Chapter 781. Brothers, let's have a drink before the battle of life and death. Fourth update. He had broken through to the supreme martial artist level. Could there be anything more fucked up and devastating than this? If Duke Yu knew how the two of them were feeling, he would definitely spit out a mouthful of saliva. If it wasn't for you bunch of perverts, he would have broken through to the supreme martial artist level long ago. Also, if it wasn't for this sudden breakthrough, do you think the two of you would be able to escape unscathed? Humans should learn to be grateful. Let's hurry up and leave. He has just broken through, and I think he still needs to stabilize his realm. But this process might not be very long. It will take at most a day. The second priest said, from my observation of this demon, he is extremely vengeful. Once he has broken through, he will definitely find trouble with us. Let's send a message to the others and ask them to rush over to help. We don't need to take a detour anymore. Rushing to the northwest is the right thing to do. The faster the better. There are many experts there. As long as we reach there, we will be really safe. You're absolutely right. Let's go, let's go. Miao Zhendong nodded. When that time comes, if this treasure is really there, let's gather everyone's strength to kill him. I don't believe that he will leave the 7th Division. Brothers, let's have a drink before the battle of life and death. Fourth update. This strange forest is so sharp. My dear brother, you are my dear brother. Please have mercy on me. Don't even think about killing him. He has already tasted it. The second high priest was speechless for a while. Quickly shield your divine sense and leave. The two of them sped up and disappeared without a trace with a whoosh sound. Another day and a half passed. Outside the boundless mountain forest, a whoosh sound was heard. A handsome figure came out. He was dressed in green, and his face was calm and gentle. He was tall and slender, and naturally had a kind of elegant elegance. The person who came was Duke Yu. After determining the direction, he directly set off. His direction was very fixed and very simple. Northwest. Chuyang, I'm here. I don't know if you still remember the agreement we made in the 3 heavens. That is the greatest hope of my elven race. His biggest wish. Our supreme peerless expert Duke Yu is here. Yi family. Yi Chunshin was sitting cross-legged in the hall with his eyes closed, meditating quietly. Suddenly, someone hurried over to report. Elder Master, eldest young master suddenly went missing. When I went to deliver food to him just now, I discovered that the door to his room was wide open. I don't know where he went. Yi Chunshin sighed. Don't bother about him. Look after the family. After the servant left, Yi Chunshin slowly opened his eyes. The look in his eyes was extremely complicated. How could he not know about Yi Zue's departure? All of Yi Zue's movements were covered by his divine sense. Yi Chunshin didn't stop Yi Zue when he desperately broke through the restriction and escaped last night. I hope that you can find your own way and come back alive. If you really can't find it, then don't come back. Even if you come back, I will personally destroy you. Shao Clan's Xiaoqinyu's reinforcement team. Currently, they had already passed through the land where winter and summer alternated and entered the Northwest Territory. They were still advancing slowly, and at most they walked less than 700 miles in a day. This speed was naturally several times faster than ordinary people. But compared to these people's own strength, it was so slow that it was practically like an old cow climbing a hill. From the southeast all the way here, It actually took them 2 months and 10 days to walk. But they had finally arrived. They had already entered the northwest, the land of ice and snow. Xiao Qinyu just sat in the carriage and didn't move at all throughout the journey. Other than drinking some water occasionally, he didn't even eat. He was silent throughout the journey, as if he was deliberating and scheming about something. But ultimately, he had a lot on his mind throughout the journey, causing the entire team to be extremely depressed. In short, the atmosphere was as gloomy as it could be. Stop. Xiao Qinyu looked at the snowy ground in front of him and instructed calmly. Then, he waved his sleeves and the accumulated snow on the ground flew up without warning, revealing the ground below. The members of the Xiao clan were shocked to discover that it wasn't an ordinary ground beneath them. Instead, it was a patch of dried blood, and there were even some pieces of flesh and blood from a corpse. Chapter 1486. In front of Xiao Qinyu, Li Chuanbo was completely exposed. He did so without the slightest bit of precaution. He did it very naturally, without the slightest bit of reluctance. It was as if everything was supposed to be like this. Under such circumstances, even if the other party was not a Rain-grade supreme martial artist like Li Chuanbo, an 8th-grade supreme martial artist, or even a 7th-grade supreme martial artist would be enough to take Li Chuanbo's life with one strike. How many times in his life would someone as strong as Li Chuanbo be so defenseless? Could it be that he didn't know that the current Xiao Qinyu was no longer on the same path as him? Xiao Qinyu's sharp eyes kept watching him busy. His gaze became deeper and deeper. In the end, it was inexplicably covered by a thin layer of mist. He seemed to sigh softly, and a few ripples finally appeared on his calm face. Chapter 782. One can warm the wine when cold, but how to warm the heart when cold? Yu Wenyu smiled and said, "Let's do it together. It's faster this way. I haven't done this for a long time. Don't forget how to do it." As he said that, he squatted down and started to fiddle with the dry wood. 2 mid-grade supreme martial artists, 2 of the top tyrants of the generation, just like that. One plucked the feathers from the chicken leg, and the other got the dry wood, then mixed the seasoning and started the fire. Throughout the whole process, they didn't use any of their cultivation at all. They just swayed back and forth in front of each other's eyes. If either of them were to make a move at this time, they would have absolute confidence in killing the other. There was no difficulty or risk at all. However, the 2 of them were busy from beginning to end, as if they couldn't care about anything else at all. They threw themselves wholeheartedly into the big project of barbecuing, and their expressions were very solemn and dignified. When the fire finally rose into the sky, these 2 tyrants ended up with smoke all over their bodies. There were inevitably a few more stains on their usually dignified faces. They looked at each other and laughed at the same time. Then, the 2 of them didn't care about their image at all. They directly sat down in the snow and gently fiddled with the fire in front of them. Shoulder to shoulder, the 2 of them were very focused and didn't say a word. Chapter 782. One can warm the wine when cold, but how to warm the heart when cold? They were fully focused on turning the chicken leg, sprinkling seasoning, occasionally stirring the fire, and putting some dry wood. Just like back then, thousands or tens of thousands of years ago, there were 2 teenagers who were in the same situation as they were now. They were barbecuing themselves in a sorry state. Perhaps it was because they were careless, or perhaps it was because the other party was playing tricks on them. They smeared their faces and bodies like dirty little kittens. However, their hearts were filled with happiness. They had no grudges and were carefree and happy. Everything was silent except for the sound of snowflakes falling from the sky. There was also the crackling sound of dry wood burning. Waves of fragrance wafted in the air. The snowy chicken drumstick was already half-cooked. The 2 of them seemed to be really good at barbecuing. The 2 of them, who were focused on roasting the meat, still did not speak. They seemed to be very patient, and also seemed to be enjoying the process as they continued to work hard. After a long time, a voice broke the silence. "Second brother, do you remember that you were the one who taught me how to barbecue? That year, you were 15 and I was 13. Xiao Qinyu's usually deep and clear eyes actually showed a trace of mistiness. He subconsciously laughed mischievously. "Yes, at that time. Our parents' generation, were all missing. The two of us who lost our fathers at the same time got together for a period of time. At that time, At that time, it was really good. We were like brothers to each other. There was the warmth of reminiscence in Li Chuanbuo's eyes. Who would make others so anxious before they knew it? I still remember when I was being hunted down by that human butcher with 1,000 hands. But second brother, you brought people to save me. The brothers fought together, At that time, Big Brother hadn't gone missing yet, right? Yes. Big Brother hadn't gone missing yet. Xiao Qinyu echoed almost subconsciously. Suddenly he asked, "You're talking about?" Li Chuanbuo said softly. "I'm talking about Big Brother. The real Big Brother is not Yi Chunshin." There was reminiscence in Xiao Qinyu's eyes. If Big Brother was still around, I believe that our big family would definitely not have reached this stage today. But Big Brother's whole family went missing for no reason. Li Chuanbuo chuckled. It's rare for brothers to gather together. Why bring up those troublesome things? I should be punished, second brother. Xiao Qinyu laughed. It's indeed second brother's fault. I'll punish myself with 1 cup later. If 1 cup isn't enough, I'll punish myself with 3 cups. Li Chuanbuo chuckled. There's enough wine today. Second brother doesn't need to take the opportunity to cheat us to drink. Xiao Qinyu rolled his eyes. You little. Is your second brother that kind of person? Li Chuanbuo smiled cheekily and said, Of course second brother isn't that kind of person. You've always just done and not said. The two of them chattered endlessly and started to talk about some of the interesting things that happened when they were young, or exposed each other's shortcomings. They laughed loudly from time to time. You patted my shoulder with your dirty hand, and I ruffled your hair. Both of them were monster-level old men, who were more than 10,000 years old. At this moment, they were laughing as innocently as babies. Xiao Qinyu patted him on the shoulder. How can I not remember? It was that time 8,400 years ago. That time, Yi Chunshin let you down. I know everything about that matter from beginning to end. But I didn't care. Li Chuanbuo broke into a smile and said, Second brother, you remembered wrongly. It wasn't 8,400 years ago. It was 8,530 years ago, on the 5th day of the 10th month. Second brother, that day was my birthday. Xiao Qinyu was silent for a while. Then, he used his hand to fiddle with the drumstick and said dispassionately, The drumstick isn't done yet. Let's not talk about those things of the past. Li Chuanbuo chuckled and said, Since it's something of the past, there's no harm in talking about it. It was from that time, from that day onwards, that everyone suddenly realized that one could also scheme against each other and bully each other. If Li Chuanbuo could tolerate it, then who else could? Who else could I bully? And so chaos finally appeared. Xiao Qinyu said again, Don't talk about it. I said don't talk about it. Li Chuanbuo smiled. Second brother and Yi Chunshin are good friends. If you don't want me to talk about it, then I won't talk about it. Then he chuckled and said, The drumstick is done. It's finally done. I can finally taste second brother's culinary skills again. I was still doubting whether there would be such a day. Xiao Qinyu raised his face and tilted his head up fiercely. He opened his mouth wide and faced the sky to welcome the falling snowflakes. His eyes, however, were tightly shut. His face was still as calm as the sea. His throat was bulging so clearly, like a chicken waiting to be slaughtered. It was as if anyone would be able to cut it with a knife. Li Chuanbuo looked at his throat and smiled. Second brother, you're still my second brother. This will never change. Xiao Qinyu's Adam's apple bobbed up and down. He swallowed a mouthful of saliva. His smile was somewhat miserable. Aren't you my brother too? Will it change? The spicy, fragrant, and crispy roasted snow drumstick was placed on the table, giving off a rich fragrance. However, the wine that was still warm just now had already turned cold. In fact, it had even condensed into one in the wine cup. Xiao Qinyu was a little stunned. He said, The wine has turned cold. Let me warm it up. Li Chuanbuo shook his head somewhat sadly. He said, The wine can still be warmed when it turns cold. But can the heart still be warmed when it turns cold? Xiao Qinyu was taken aback. He said subconsciously, No. Li Chuanbuo smiled, as if he didn't want to talk about this topic anymore. He said evenly, Since we're in the northwest, let me warm the wine. He reached out and held both cups of wine in his palms. His hands actually trembled a little as he said, "It's really cold. Would a low-grade supreme martial artist care about a piece of ice? How cold could it be if it was really cold?" However, Xiao Qinyu continued in a deep voice, "It's really cold." Chapter 1487. Heat gradually rose from Li Chuanbuo's palms. The wine gradually dissolved and became as clear as jade again. The wine has been warmed. It's a pity that after the wine has dissolved, the taste of the wine has disappeared. Li Chuanbuo said softly as he stared at the wine in his palms. Xiao Qinyu was silent for a moment before he said, "Since the taste of the wine is gone, we can't drink to our heart's content. Let's change it." "But if we change it, it won't be the original 2 cups anymore," Li Chuanbuo said somewhat sadly. "Wine is still wine. It can still intoxicate people." Xiao Qinyu said softly. Both of them heaved a long sigh. The wine had been changed. Their spirits were also lifted. Even if they forced a smile, this was also the last time they would be together in this life. "Second brother, please. Chuanbuo, please. The first time we drank wine 10,000 years ago. At that time, we were in high spirits and gave pointers to the world. What a joy it was. 1,000 years ago, we drank wine many times. At that time, the world was already settled. We were satisfied and carefree. 1,000 years ago we drank wine, but there were already many sighs. Time passed just like that. It's hard to turn back time. For 1,000 years ago we drank wine. We were still brothers. What couldn't we say? What couldn't we say never said. Only you and me." At this point, both of them fell into silence at the same time. It was an indescribable silence. The next moment, both of them raised their heads and drank ferociously. After 3 pots of wine went down their stomachs, Li Chuanbuo laughed loudly. With a wave of his hand, the 3 pots of wine flew far away. However, there were more than 10 pots of unopened fine wine on the table. Li Chuanbuo took a pot and slapped the clay seal with his palm. He smiled and said, "A pot of turbid wine consumes the remaining joy. Farewell today, don't be in a dilemma." Xiao Qinyu's eyes were hazy. He grabbed a pot of wine and recited, "Life and death, victory and defeat, we are all brothers. Cold in the heart of heaven." Just as he finished, both of them suddenly froze at the same time. An indescribable emotion rose silently. In that instant their hearts actually ached. This was a wine writ. It was written by Ling Muyang when they drank together, before the brothers established a big clan. This was the last 4 lines. At that time, all the brothers said that this wine writ was really well done, and it was passed down. But the words life and death, victory and defeat, we are all brothers were true. And now, when it came to Xiao Qinyu and Li Chuanbuo, life and death, victory and defeat, the words were still the same, but it had its own implications. However, they were poles apart from each other, poles apart. A pot of turbid wine was enough to satisfy the remaining joys. Indeed, all the joys of the brothers for the rest of their lives were in a pot of wine today. Later on, as long as someone with the surname Jun appeared in the Jianghu, you would hunt them down. Is this also the reason? Don't say the word you, Xiao Qinyu said. No one with the surname Xiao was involved in this matter. But that Xiao guy knew about this matter from start to finish, Li Chuanbuo said sternly, and he pretended to be deaf and mute all along. Xiao Qinyu didn't say anything. After a long time he said, Junwei didn't die, because many years after the event, his descendants still appeared in the Jianghu. And these people, without exception, were hunted down by several big clans. Ling Muyang didn't say anything when he came to me. He kowed out to me 3 times, turned around and left. Starting from those 3 heads, I started to secretly deploy people to protect Uncle Jun's bloodline and join forces with Ling Muyang. This was done by me. Later on, more and more time passed. The hunt also gradually died down, and Uncle Jun's descendants were sent to the upper 3 heavens by Ling Muyang. The matter ended there. Since that's the case, why didn't you guys make a move on Jun Shizhu, the leader of the dark bamboo in the upper 3 heavens? Isn't her surname also Jun? Li Chuanbuo smiled somewhat mockingly, because Ning Tianya interfered. Ning Tianya came out of seclusion at that time and protected the bloodline of the Jun family. And They couldn't be sure that she was a descendant of the Jun family. They might as well do Ning Tianya a favor. Also, there was no longer anyone with the surname Jun in the upper three heavens, so there was no need to worry about the threat. Xiao Qinyu said indifferently. The most important point was that the big clans at that time were already unshakable. I understand. There was disappointment in Li Chuanbua's tone. He didn't even bother to hide the disheartened look on his face as he said, I really understand now. I understand now. No matter how deep the friendship is, it can't stop the interests. Li Chuanbua said sadly. For you guys, friendship and whatnot are not important. Xiao Qinyu grabbed a drumstick and took a bite. He said, Chuanbua, can we not talk about this anymore? Li Chuanbua said dejectedly. Please believe me. I don't want to talk about it even more. I just want to know why. Our fathers were all friends who went through life and death together. Why is it that when it comes to our generation, it has to be so heartless? Xiao Qinyu was silent for a moment. Then he said, Our fathers went through fire and water together. Their relationship was a life and death trust. That's true. Therefore, they will never let each other down. When it came to our generation, firstly, our fathers went missing too early, so the impact on us wasn't deep enough. Secondly, we didn't go through life and death together at all. We didn't have so many shared thrilling experiences, so there was no so-called true love. As for other things, he didn't care at all. Li Xiongtu's expression became uglier and uglier. His eyes also became more and more gloomy. It was fine if it happened once or twice, but almost every time, he would encounter some unexpected situation. That wasn't an accident anymore. However, Li Xiongtu had no way to deal with this. Mo Tianji and the rest didn't care about him at all. They even treated him and helped him recover. Li Wubua and the rest didn't have any opinions about this. They only looked on coldly. Li Ju, Li Batian, and the rest became more and more unscrupulous. In the end, they even brazenly and unscrupulously set up traps for Li Xiongtu. When the army retreated, there would always be people who would intentionally or unintentionally push the injured Li Xiongtu, so that he would fall behind and become the one who covered the rear. When they charged and broke through the enemy lines together, Li Xiongtu would often suddenly realize that he was all alone. Thousands of soldiers were all his enemies. Everyone else was sincerely cooperating and helping each other. Only he was facing a circle of enemies alone. At least a circle of enemies. Everyone was bathed in blood and killing. Their eyes and ears were alert. But their companions didn't even look at him from the corner of their eyes. It was as if he was invisible. If not for the fact that Li Xiongtu's foundation was solid, his cultivation was strong, his ability to resist attacks, and his ability to resist injuries was outstanding, then he would have died at least 30 to 40 times by now. Li Xiongtu's heart slowly turned cold. He wasn't stupid. Why? He finally couldn't help but ask Mo Tianji. He could only ask Mo Tianji. Perhaps he could get an answer because Mo Tianji disdained to lie to him. Asking others would only bring shame to himself. Why? There's no why. Isn't the reason right there on the table? Mo Tianji said. Because you have already lost your value to be used. Now it's time for you to repay them. No matter what method you use to repay them. It's all right. It's not overboard. It's not overboard at all, Li Xiongtu said angrily. But I should be the one to repay them. It's only repaying them if I'm willing. Is framing me like this also repaying them? Mo Tianji said disdainfully. Of course it's repaying them. Willing? You can only say that you're too naive if you can say such things. Every time Meng Huanhuan saw the wounds all over Li Xiongtu's body, she would cry. More than once, she would kneel on the ground and beg Li Xiongtu to stop fighting. Since you already know that they're using you and even harming you, why are you still fighting? Why are you still so stupid to go out and risk your life? While Meng Huanhuan was persuading him, Mo Tianji, Ao Xieyan, and Rui Butong were watching coldly from the sidelines. Ao Xieyan and Rui Butong couldn't help but want to rush out a few times. However, they were always stopped by Mo Tianji. Because of this, the two of them didn't speak to Mo Tianji for a few days. I've never seen someone as ruthless as you. You're such a hero. Not only are you indifferent to being framed by others, you're even adding fuel to the fire. Adding insult to injury? Mo Tianji was also watching. He was watching Li Xiongtu. What kind of choice would he make under such a blow? Mo Tianji was really looking forward to Li Xiongtu's choice. I want to fight. I want to continue fighting. Li Xiongtu said lightly. I know that they're harming me. I already know why they saved me in the beginning. As for what they're thinking now, I also know. I know that only death awaits me if I stay here. Li Xiongtu said with anger and heartache. But they've saved my life. They've given me too many resources, and treated me as their hope. No matter what their intentions were, no matter what their intentions were, no matter what their intentions were, I'm indebted to them. That's it. No matter how despicable they are, no matter what their motives are, it's a fact that I'm indebted to them. I have to repay them no matter what. I want to fight 100 battles for the Li clan. I've fought 17 times now. I'm still 33 times away. It's my fate to die in battle. It's my fortune to survive. I'm not fighting for the Li clan. I'm fighting for myself. I'm fighting for my heart. Li Xiongtu raised his head. I won't feel guilty for my path to the top. I won't destroy myself on the path to the top. Mo Tianji heaved a deep sigh as well. He didn't know if this sigh was filled with relief, appreciation, or something else. Li Xiongtu's choice was completely within his expectations. It was the same for the shock he felt. Li Xiongtu's temper had always been like this. Mo Tianji understood it completely, and even admired it. However, this didn't mean that Mo Tianji was recognized by others. On the contrary, Mo Tianji didn't want Li Xiongtu to be flexible. The other side wants to exterminate you. They've used all kinds of schemes. They've almost killed you in front of you. But you still want to fight for them 100 times to repay their kindness. How depressing was such a thought? Someone as wise as Mo Tianji could understand such thoughts, but he couldn't agree with them. Should he say that Li Xiongtu was honest, or was he stupid and ignorant? Mo Tianji didn't know what to say. He wanted to ruthlessly despise Li Xiongtu's day. He wanted to despise this man's stubborn way of thinking. However, thinking about it was one thing, and disagreeing with it was another. But he realized that he couldn't despise Li Xiongtu even if he wanted to. In fact, he even had some admiration, and even respect for him. I want to explode, but I can't. I have to plan properly. I'll start writing the final battle tomorrow. Chapter 1490. The reward of 100 battles is too much. Mo Tianji sighed. Li Xiongtu, you can't afford this reward. Don't blame me for not reminding you that the enemy's reinforcements have almost all arrived. The next battle will only be more brutal. The next battle will be led by an 8th or 8th grade supreme martial artist. The final battle between the two sides is about to begin. When the time comes with your cultivation, you won't be able to help at all. Even the aftermath will be enough to destroy you. Do you think your so-called contribution is meaningful? So far, you have already fought for the Li family 17 times. According to your calculation, you still have to fight for another 33 times before you can be considered to have repaid your debt. However, not to mention 33 times at most, after this big battle, you will have to fight for the Li family in Book 7, Part 780, at most. It's time for the final battle between the two sides. Mo Tianji said. How are you going to complete your 100 battles? Li Xiongtu said indifferently. To be honest, I also know that the chances of repaying my debt are slim. But what I want is nothing more than peace of mind and righteousness. That's all. He said indifferently. I'm not stupid either. How could I not know whether it's worth it or not? But back then, when I was at the end of my road, it was them who helped me. This is a hurdle in my life. I must walk through it in my own way. I understand. Mo Tianji nodded. Facing such a person, even the master of calculation and manipulation was helpless. Moreover, I crave battle. I'm passionate about battle. Only through battle can I feel the value of my own existence. Only through continuous battle can my future path be. It belongs to me. Li Xiongtu's eyes shone with a sharp light with a kind of passion. This kind of passion could be felt by everyone. At this moment, Li Xiongtu was almost burning. Everyone had only seen this kind of burning fighting spirit on Dong Wuxiang before. At this moment, If one were to close their eyes, everyone would think that Dong Wuxiang was standing right in front of them. Chapter 780. Adding 4 more pawns to the monarch ferocious and domineering. These two people, who didn't look alike at all, actually looked so similar at this moment. When you guys arrived, I had just broken through to the strength of a first-grade martial saint. Li Xiongtu's eyes flashed. I didn't even adjust my breathing to stabilize my realm, before I immediately threw myself into a life-and-death battle. Continuing, the first round was a life-and-death challenge. Countless times, I was on the brink of death, but in the end I survived. I don't know why, but I actually like the feeling of coming back from the jaws of death. That is an experience that I will never be able to achieve through my usual practice. Another 5 battles later. In such a short period of time since the start of the battle, to be able to rise from the initial level of Supreme Martial Artist to the peak level of Supreme Martial Artist was already quite an achievement. If it were someone else, they would definitely not be able to make this progress without thousands of years. Mo Tianji actually used this to attack the two of them. Wouldn't it make them speechless? Don't you know that everyone needs to rise to the Supreme Martial Artist level as soon as possible? We are racing against time. If you have time to argue with me, why don't you use it to consolidate your own cultivation? Mo Tianji's words made even Li Xiongtu stagger and almost fall to the ground. You make it sound so easy. The supreme grade is just a matter of touching your lips. But, do you know how many talented and brilliant people would be stuck at each of these checkpoints? Mo Tianji fixed his gaze on Li Xiongtu's day. His eyes revealed that he was deep in thought. There was a strange light that was faintly flickering in his eyes. Li Xiongtu was fearless. Even when he faced Chu Yang and Dong Wuxiang, there was no fear in his heart. But at this moment, when he met Mo Tianji's gaze, he felt chills all over his body. This guy's schemes were really impossible to guard against. He was really unscrupulous. It would be strange if he wasn't afraid. Actually, what Mo Tianji was thinking about had nothing much to do with Li Xiongtu himself. Li Xiongtu had improved so quickly with the help of battle. Then, if he and his brothers also joined the battle and experienced life and death, would they also be able to improve like Li Xiongtu? But after thinking for a while, the flame in his eyes gradually extinguished. This idea is undoubtedly very tempting, but forget it. I can't bear to. Mo Tianji sighed in his heart. He thought silently. Although I know that there will definitely be an effect if we do it this way, it's still too risky. At this moment, from the direction of the Li clan's main hall, an earth-shattering cheer suddenly came. It seemed like something big had happened, and it seemed like it was a good thing. Everyone, follow me to the main hall, and prepare for the next wave of battle. Mo Tianji stood up and led the way out. Ao Xie Yin and Rui Butong stood up at the same time. Li Xiongtu followed suit. Xiongtu. Meng Huanhuan let out a soft cry of sorrow. Li Xiongtu stood still. Without turning back he said, "Don't worry, I won't die for sure. As long as I don't deliberately seek death, no one in the world can take my life. When I'm done with the Li clan and fulfill my wish, I'll propose to you immediately, and we'll leave this place together." After Li Xiongtu finished speaking he strode away. "I'll wait for you. You must come back." Behind him, Meng Huanhuan nodded her head heavily with tears in her eyes. Mo Tianji nodded. The chances of winning are indeed very slim. In fact, it's close to none. However, if you want to preserve a trace of your bloodline, it's not absolutely impossible. There should still be hope. Hearing Mo Tianji's words, everyone in the hall let out a long sigh. Everyone already had a common understanding of this outcome. It was a fact. Although it was cruel, but no one was surprised. The Li family is located in the northwest, and the geographical environment is not good. If he was in the heart of the continent, he could hide his bloodline anywhere. However, he was in the northwest. But it's not easy. The only way is to charge out. Only by charging out can we have a future. Li Chuanbua said. This old man has thought of this, military advisor Mo has thought of this as well. And I believe that the allied forces have also thought of this. Therefore, it's really very difficult to charge out. He paused. His gaze went past Mo Tianji and looked at Ao Xian, Rui Butong and Li Xiongtu. He said, "All of you must take good care of yourselves." His tone didn't change at all from the start to the end. However, Li Xiongtu clearly felt that Li Chuanbua's gaze stopped on his face for a moment longer. Mo Tianji's eyes flickered slightly. He could tell that the last few words of this wise old man in front of him were very meaningful. He just wanted the four of them to take good care of themselves. Or, before he finished speaking, Li Chuanbua stood up and strode down from his seat. Facing everyone, he said solemnly, "I have something to say. Elder Master, please enlighten us." Everyone knelt down in unison. The Li clan is at a critical juncture of life and death. Since we need military advisor Mo to command, then we must confirm military advisor Mo's position. Firstly, if any one of you dares to play any tricks here, I will personally take action and be the first to kill him. Secondly, Li Chuanbua gestured. "Military advisor Mo, please take a seat." The direction he was pointing at was the seat of the Li clan head. Then, Li Chuanbua said loudly, "From now on, everyone in the Li clan, including me, must listen to military advisor Mo's commands unconditionally. Anyone who dares to disobey will be killed without mercy." Yes, no one had any objections to this decision, because it was Li Chuanbua who made this decision. There's one more important thing. Now select your descendants. Every clan is only allowed to have 2 people. Then, gather them together. Once you find a suitable opportunity, send your descendants out first, so that you can make a comeback in the future. Yes, this time, everyone agreed even more readily. There was already no hope of victory. They only hoped that their descendants would have a chance to make a comeback. Li Chuanbua turned around. "Military advisor Mo, please. From this moment onwards, even if you sell all of us in the Li clan, we will also listen to you. With me in charge, I believe that no one will dare to have any objections." Mo Tianji nodded and walked forward step by step. Ao Shiyun and Rui Butong followed closely behind him. Li Xiongtu followed him for a few steps, then stopped and stood beside Li Chuanbua. Li Chuanbua's brows furrowed. Mo Tianji finally walked to his seat. Turning around, he slowly sat down. Ao Shiyun and Rui Butong stood behind him, just like 2 door gods. With the situation settled, the people below suddenly felt an unprecedented pressure. It was even more oppressive than when the old clan master, Li Chuanbua, was still in power. It was as if the entire Li clan was in his hands the moment Mo Tianji sat down here. Absolute power. In the hands of an outsider. But no one was unconvinced. Mo Tianji's abilities had long conquered them. Only Mo Tianji smiled bitterly in his heart. He didn't expect that he couldn't get rid of this hot potato in the end. A veteran was indeed a veteran. An old monster who had lived for more than 10,000 years. He was a real character, a human-shaped monster. The moment Li Chuanbua appeared, he cut the Gordian knot and established Mo Tianji's position with the highest authority. He had the demeanor of a clan head, who didn't need to use people he doubted. This gesture could be said to be extremely beautiful. In fact, Mo Tianji could clearly feel that this wasn't just for show. Indeed, he was sincere. It looked like Li Chuanbua really felt that the Li clan's destruction was imminent. He could even feel that the Li clan's only chance of survival should lie with Mo Tianji. On the surface, this move seemed to be handing over the lives of the entire Li clan to Mo Tianji. It seemed to be a very risky move that could easily lead to the destruction of the Li clan. However, on a deeper level, it was actually a very smart decision. Because Li Chuanbua wasn't Li Wubua. At most, Li Wubua only knew about the legend of the so-called tribulation. But Li Chuanbua knew very well what kind of existence a tribulation was. Just like Mo Tianji in front of him, even if you didn't trust him, he would still help you come up with plans and strategies to deal with the enemy, causing the Li clan to struggle at death's door. But deep down, he would only treat the Li clan as a war tool. If they were all dead, then so be it. But if you trusted him, he would still do his best. But for this sincere trust, he would make a certain degree of repayment. And what Li Chuanbua needed was this certain degree of repayment. The continuation of the Li clan's bloodline. No matter how many bloodlines there would be in the end, it was fine as long as there was, even if it was just 1 or 2. It was better than having no descendants. Mo Tianji bowed to this wise old man and said, "Elderly, I'll do my best." A smile like spring water flashed across Li Chuanbua's eyes. He nodded lightly. He knew that Mo Tianji's words meant that he had agreed. It was good that he had agreed. Mo Tianji said, "I'll solemnly remind everyone for the last time. Each clan is only allowed to have 2 people. It would be best if he was alone. Also, let me give you a word of advice. Don't try to play any tricks anymore. Right now our bloodline is on the run, sacrificing the entire clan in exchange for a tiny chance of survival. If any part of our clan has a problem from within, then don't blame me for not reminding you all. Then, the only outcome will be the extermination of our entire clan. I believe that everyone understands this point. Don't try to take millet out of the fire and drag others down with you." It was quiet down there. For a long time no one spoke. Everyone was trying their best to hold their breaths. For a moment the hall, which had a radius of 10,000 feet, was densely packed with people. However, there was no sound at all. Even the sound of a pin dropping could be heard. Li Wubua stood at one side while Li Ju and Li Batian stood beside him. At this moment, the 3 of them seemed to be deep in thought. However, only they knew what exactly they were thinking about. Now, let's do a head count and divide the battle teams. 8th grade Supreme Martial Artists and above, please step forward, Mo Tianji said calmly. Li Chuanbua took the lead and stepped forward. Immediately after, Li Xiangxi and the others followed suit. 8. Mo Tianji frowned. There should be a total of 11. This means that in the previous battle, 3 8th grade Supreme Martial Artists have already been sacrificed. Among these 8, there are still 2 who are seriously injured, and their combat power has been greatly reduced. Excluding Elder Li and the other 3 who have just appeared today, this means that, in the previous battle, we have already lost more than half of our combat power. The terrifying strength of the enemy is evident from this. The enemy's reinforcements are coming from all directions, and they are almost inexhaustible. However, here we have no backup inside and no reinforcements outside. It can be said that one death is one less enemy. Everyone, don't think that the situation will be so optimistic just because Elder Li and the others are here. The expressions of the Li clan members became even more solemn. Next, 7th grade Supreme Martial Artists, please step forward, Mo Tianji said again. Another 17 people took a step forward. 3rd grade Supreme Martial Artists, 25 people. 5th grade Supreme Martial Artists. However, only 10 5th grade Supreme Martial Artists stepped forward. In the recent battles, 5th grade Supreme Martial Artists had already become the leaders of the troops and were the ones who were most likely to lose their lives. 4th grade, there were still 28 4th grade Supreme Martial Artists remaining. Furthermore, they were all injured. Li Xiongtu was among them, 3rd grade to 1st grade. Looking at the more than 100,000 people in front of him, he said loudly, "You don't need to participate in the following battles. What you need to do is to stay with all the women, children, and the elderly. Don't make any strange movements. Let me tell you one last thing. You must remember and carry it out." There was no sound from below. At this moment, everyone's gaze was focused on Mo Tianji. If there really comes a day, the Li clan was gone. If the other party disdains or cannot bear to kill you and the women and children, then, no matter how wronged you are, you must live on with determination. Just live on like that. Mo Tianji had just said this when Li Chuanbua suddenly stepped forward and stood in front of Mo Tianji. In a low voice he said, "Boys, I am Li Chuanbua, the founder of the Li clan. Now the Li clan is in a life and death crisis. I ask you to do one thing. You must remember, you must do it." The 120,000 people below looked at him with fervent gazes. The founder of the Li clan. Li Chuanbua choked when he said the first part of his speech. After a long while he said loudly, "You must remember Mo Tianji's words. If they don't kill you, then you must work hard to live on. From now on, change your name and live a stable life. Don't force yourself to take revenge for the Li clan." But, when he said this, his voice paused again. It was as if there was a big mouthful of phlegm in his throat that he couldn't spit out. He panted like a bellows for a while. Suddenly he roared fiercely, "But you must remember one thing. If they want to kill you, kill the women and children, and rape them. Then you must remember that the first thing you must do is not to fight or kill the enemy, but to kill your own people. He would kill all the beautiful women in his clan at the first possible moment. Kill all the women and children who are powerless to resist. Kill them all. The Li clan can accept failure. We can accept the fate of destruction, but the Li clan will never accept humiliation. Li Chuanbua's words echoed in the entire Li clan for a long time. Everyone, including those who were here and those who weren't, heard it. After a moment of silence, hundreds of thousands of people suddenly roared together. The Li clan can accept failure. We can accept the fate of destruction, but the Li clan will never accept humiliation. Good. These are the good men of the Li clan. Li Chuanbua laughed loudly, tears streaming down his face. That's how it is. When the time comes, kill your own women first, and then fight the enemy with your life. Even if you can lose a strand of hair, it's still a victory and a gain. Yes. The eyes of the 120,000 people turned red at the same time. They controlled themselves to not let their tears fall, as they roared with all their might. In a while, gather all the women and children together. You will be in charge of watching over them. Li Chuanbua's gaze was as sharp as an arrow. Chapter 1494. Mo Tianji said. At the start of the battle, only 4 teams will go forward. The other 4 teams will be backup teams. As for Senior Li Chuanbua's independent team, it will be the last backup team, and also the most important and crucial battle force. Senior, please be aware of this. Li Chuanbua nodded. Once you say it, I already understand everything. Don't worry. Mo Tianji nodded and said, since that's the case, the final battle will be decided as such. With his hands behind his back, he took 2 steps and said, I have a letter. Who can deliver it to Diwu Qingru for me? Deliver it to Diwu Qingru? The other party's military advisor? Yes. Li Xiangxi took a step forward. How about I make the trip personally? No way. Mo Tianji said. Your position is too important. If you make the trip personally, regardless of Diwu Qingru's 7th Division's 700th letter of challenge, no matter how unwilling he is, no matter how unwilling Ro is, she will definitely make you stay. The person who delivers this letter can't have a high cultivation level, but can't be too low either. A 5th grade supreme martial artist is the most suitable. This way, the chances of escaping unscathed will be the greatest. Li Tongtian, you shall make the trip. Li Chuanbua directly appointed him. Yes, great-grandson obeys. Li Tongtian took a step forward, his expression solemn. He took the letter from Mo Tianji and flew out, disappearing into the snowy sky like a gust of wind. May I ask, what exactly is written in the military advisor's letter? Li Xiangxi asked curiously. Nothing much. It's just 10 days later, the final battle in the morning. Do you dare? That's all. Mo Tianji laughed softly. It's just this sentence. 10 days later, the final battle. That's right. 10 days? Isn't that a little too rushed? If it's a month later. Li Xiangxi took a light breath. 10 days is already the limit. It can't be more than that. All of the other parties' reinforcements have already arrived. Mo Tianji said indifferently. I believe that the other party is already prepared for an all-out battle. If we don't deliver this letter soon, or tomorrow at the latest, the other party will launch an all-out attack. That would be even worse, and they would be caught off guard. Book 7, Chapter 700. Li Xiangxi said. Military advisor's words make sense. However, the situation is already so bad. Why are you so confident? The other party will definitely accept this battle? If it were me, I would definitely not accept it. Mo Tianji smiled gently. Because you're not Diwu Qingru. He is not Diwu Qingru. He said faintly. In these 10 days, I have sacrificed myself for my 120,000 brothers and 700,000 women and children. He had purposely fought for 10 days. The last 10 days. Actually, it doesn't matter if the final battle starts now. Mo Tianji's words. May I give his brother 10 days to rest? Directly touched the softest part of his heart. He thought of the last time he got drunk that day. The last witness was gone, and the sad, desperate, and disheartened laughter of his brother, when he left miserably, seemed to echo in his ears again. Therefore Xiao Qinyu made a decision right away. Not to mention 10 days. Even if you want 20 days, I'll give it to you. Diwu Qingro nodded. I have no objections. We can wait for reinforcements from the law enforcement officers in these 10 days. I'll immediately send a reply to Mo Tianji. I'll have to trouble the messenger to bring it back. The decisive battle that will decide our fate is about to begin. Chu Yang stood on the cliff of the Wind and Snow Mountain. On the other side, Mo lay, or was rubbing the large bruise on Dong Wushang's back to promote blood circulation. Dong Wushang clenched his teeth, his black face full of pain. Speaking of which, this fellow was really bored out of his mind. He hadn't fought for the past few days, and his hands were itchy. It was almost the same as a heavy smoker, who couldn't get rid of his addiction. He said that his hands were itchy, and he wanted to find someone to spar with. This wasn't a problem. How many people were there for him to spar with? Chu Yang, Mo Lei and Mo Qingwu could all let him have his fill. But Dong Wushang said that there was no point in fighting with them, and that it wasn't suffocating enough. Therefore, this fellow went straight to the strongest one, and actually went to spar with Wu Jueqing. And Wu Jueqing was in an extremely depressed state at that time. When he saw that this fellow came looking for a beating, a ready-made punching bag was sent to him. Naturally, he wouldn't stand on ceremony. With a few punches and kicks, he turned this fellow into a snowball. While he was in a great mood, he gave this fellow a light slap on his thick back. Just this light slap was enough to make Dong Wushang unable to get up. He had been lying in front of everyone's feet for 6 hours now. Looking at his condition, his hands and heart should no longer be itchy. They had all shifted to his back. Was Wu Jueqing's slap so easy to bear? Even the Dharma Supreme had to rest for 3 months after taking a slap from Wu Jueqing. What more Dong Wushang, who was like an ant in front of Wu Jueqing now? Mo Lei rubbed his back hard, speechless. She said, both parties haven't made any moves for 4 days. It seems that both parties have reached some kind of tacit agreement. They should be starting to play big. Chu Yang nodded lightly. This result is not surprising. I can even be sure that this change is led by Tianji. Mo Qingwu was puzzled. She asked, why must it be my second brother? Can't Diwu Qingru do it? It's not that Diwu Qingru doesn't have such wisdom. It's just that Diwu Qingru's side is in an absolutely dominant situation now. If he were to take the lead, both parties would definitely be at war by now. Who knows, the outcome might have already been decided. Chu Yang smiled. It's definitely impossible for it to be so quiet and peaceful. This should be the last bit of peace before the final battle. Mo Qingwu made an O sound and said, Chu Yang, what should we do on our side? No one from our side participated in the previous few battles. Who says no one participated? On the ground, Dong Wushang snorted. Little girl, don't talk nonsense. You guys didn't participate, but I didn't even miss a single battle. I fought all the way to the end. Mo Lei was angry and anxious. She said angrily, you still have the cheek to say that. Didn't you come back with half your life left? I really have nothing to say when I meet people like you who are crazy about battles. As she spoke, she rubbed her palms even harder. She said hatefully, you're born to be punched. Dong Wushang grimaced in pain, but he didn't cry out in pain. His woman loved him dearly. No matter how painful it was, he had to endure it. It wasn't easy for both sides to stop fighting. Instead of resting, you actually shamelessly went to spar with Elder Wu. You really don't know how many bowls of rice you've eaten. At the mention of this, Mo Lei couldn't help but get angry. Elder Wu is at the peak of the world. He showed mercy this time. If he really gets angry, he can make you die without even knowing how you died with one slap. Unexpectedly, at the mention of this, Dong Wushang actually became excited. Then he said to Chu Yang, Big brother, you don't know, but I comprehended some saber essence after fighting with Senior Wu this time. Do you still remember what you said in the lower 3 heavens? The saber aura turning. Chu Yang's brows relaxed. Oh, could it be that you comprehended it? Regarding the saber aura turning, see the 4th part. I can't say that I comprehended it yet. I just have some ideas. Although Dong Wushang was lying on the ground and couldn't move, he was beaming with joy. Once I can stand up, I'll go and spar with Elder Wu again. I believe. Chapter 1495. The bruise on Dong Wuxiang's back had been deliberately hit by Wu Jueqing. The purpose was to make him quiet down for a few days, so that he wouldn't turn into a fly and bother people. After being hit by Wu Jueqing, the pain was deliberately increased by 15 times. The pain caused by that palm was unbearable, even for a man of steel like Dong Wuxiang. The rubbing just now was to disperse the blood clots and promote blood circulation. Even if she used a little strength, Dong Wuxiang could barely endure it. But now, Emole, used 20% of her true power in a fit of anger. Even though it was only 20% of her strength, it was no small matter. Dong Wuxiang was in so much pain that he opened his mouth wide, but couldn't make a sound. He was like a catfish on the verge of dying of thirst, rolling his eyes as if he was about to die. Phew! Be gentler. Oh my God! Are you trying to kill me? Dong Wuxiang only managed to catch his breath after a long while, sweating profusely from the pain. Humph! You deserve it. Emole rolled her eyes, showing no sympathy at all. She had long known that Dong Wuxiang's injury was dangerous. Although that rubbing hurt a lot, it wouldn't really cause any future problems. Otherwise, no matter how angry she was, she wouldn't have used her true power. Women! Dong Wuxiang looked up and sighed. After a long while, Dong Wuxiang finally caught his breath and said, "In the last few battles, I saw Li Xiongtu. I saw him every time." He took a deep breath and said, "I can clearly feel that my old enemy is closing in constantly. He's very fast. I don't want to be overtaken by my old enemy." Li Xiongtu? It's actually him? Has he also reached the supreme martial artist level? Emole frowned and immediately became concerned. She naturally knew that Dong Wuxiang was the greatest opponent in this generation. The only opponent she acknowledged was Li Xiongtu. As one of the tribulations, Dong Wuxiang had already left Li Xiongtu far behind him previously. Emole already didn't take this to heart. She didn't expect to hear Dong Wuxiang say that he saw him again here. And judging from Dong Wuxiang's words, Li Xiongtu's advancement didn't seem slow. At least he could already threaten the current Dong Wuxiang. It's not just the supreme martial artist level. Li Xiongtu is already a peak 4th grade supreme martial artist now. And the fierce battle intent on him is getting stronger and stronger. He's definitely not inferior to me. Dong Wuxiang's thick eyebrows twitched. As one of the tribulations, I only reached the peak of supreme venerable grade with the help of boss. Li Xiongtu is not a tribulation, but his progress is still so terrifying. To be honest, Emole remained silent. She naturally understood what Dong Wuxiang meant. And there will be no less than 200 supreme martial artists of 7th grade and above, and at least 100 supreme martial artists of 8th grade and above. In fact, there will be no less than 20 lower grade supreme martial artists. The strongest among you now is only at the peak of 2nd grade supreme martial artist. It can be said that once you participate in the battle, the possibility of death is really too high. The most conservative estimate is more than 10%. Wu Jueqing's eyes flashed. He said, "You are all tribulation sword masters. If you die here, isn't it?" Chu Yang smiled amiably. "Life and death are up to fate. If we are destined to die, then even if we practice martial arts at home, we will also go crazy. If a meteorite falls from the sky, it can also smash our heads and cause our brains to burst open. No matter how we die, there is only one outcome: death. Since that is the case, why should we be afraid?" Dong Wuxiang laughed wildly, heroic and majestic. He laughed loudly and said, "Well said. What boss said is exactly what I am thinking. If we die, we will die with our heads up. If we don't, we will live for thousands of years. Why should we care so much?" This sentence, which had a strong roguish nature, was actually full of heroism and majesty when it came out of Dong Wuxiang's mouth. It didn't make one feel that it was indecent at all. Chu Yang smiled and said, "At the end of the day, every experience of life and death is, in fact, an improvement of the spirit's belief. And when the will is strong, the cultivation will also be strong. Even ordinary people also say that wealth comes from danger. And martial arts practitioners need to roll around between life and death. Those who don't break down are transcendents." Wu Jueqing's eyes revealed a smile. He said, "Well said. This is how a person should be. No matter what it is, as long as you do it. Life and death, victory and defeat, why should we care so much? Dong Wuxiang said. Boss, since we have already decided to participate in the battle, should we inform second brother Gu's side? Chu Yang smiled and said, Gu Duxing's desire for battle has never been inferior to yours. Besides, there are still 2 freaks who have just been reborn there. I believe that even if we don't do anything, they won't let go of this opportunity for actual combat. He narrowed his eyes and said with a smile, Oh right, we haven't participated in the battle these few days, so we don't have the right to speak. But Wuxiang, you have been there every time. Have you seen those 4 guys miss a single battle? Not even a single one. Dong Wuxiang laughed. Basically, we can hear the howls of Ant Dog in every battle. At the thought of those 2 buffoons, even Mo Lei couldn't help but laugh. Right at this moment, Mo Qinggu suddenly said with some surprise, Elder Wu Yu, why have you changed your appearance? Chapter 1496. Beside him, Dong Wuxiang was also puzzled. Yes, what do they look like? Young or old? To us men, do we need to care so much about this? We're not women who love to look good. As long as that thing is still there. No matter what, we're still men. Men don't participate in beauty pageants anyway. Wu Jueqing smiled warmly, with a hopeful gaze that came from the bottom of his heart. He said slowly, If I see them one day, I'm afraid that they won't recognize me. He took a breath. After so many years, they must have changed a lot. I really can't guarantee that I'll still be able to recognize them at a glance. Also, their cultivation is definitely higher than mine now. I may not be able to discover them. Since I'm not confident of recognizing them, I can only let them discover me. If you are different from him because of Part 7 Chapter 712, because we don't know each other, and miss each other in the end. Wu Jueqing smiled bitterly. I'm afraid that I'll really break down. Chu Yang and Dong Wuxiang only felt an inexplicable heaviness in their hearts, but also a somewhat warm and blocked feeling. So that's how it is. I'm afraid that they won't recognize me. Wu Jueqing has actually started preparing now, preparing for the reunion of his brothers after a long time. It was clear how much he valued and cared about the reunion. Or perhaps, this was already the last bit of hope in his life. If he lost even this last bit of hope, as he said himself, he would really break down. Chu Yang's heart ached, and he could empathize with him. He said seriously, The 2 of you will definitely meet again. I have no doubts about this. Wu Jueqing's gaze was fixed on the distant horizon, as if his gaze could penetrate the layers of clouds and snow in the sky. He said seriously, Yes, we will definitely meet again. I have no doubts about this. In these few days, remember to make use of the time to rest, recuperate, and conserve your energy. You must ensure that your cultivation and physical strength are at their peak condition. Only then will you have the highest chance of survival when you enter the battlefield. Part 7 Chapter 712. You and he are different if you really meet your brothers in the future, and hope to get along with them for a long time. Without solid battle experience, you may end up suffering a tragic fate. Perhaps, it will lead to a bleak result. Do you understand? Chu Yang said in a heavy voice. I understand. I will let myself live well. Wu Jueqing said. He let out a cold laugh. He said, I am Wu Jueqing. I will never become a burden to my brothers. After a long while, Wu Jueqing asked, Chu Yang, I want to tell you something. I've been thinking about this for a long time, but he didn't know whether he should do it or not. In the end, it's best to ask for your opinion first. Chu Yang said, Oh, what is it that could make you so hesitant, Senior Wu? Is it related to me? Wu Jueqing frowned and said, Even if you say it's related, it's still related, right? Actually, I've been thinking for the past 2 days whether I should look for the Dharma Supreme, Diwu Chochang. Chu Yang was taken aback. Ah, why are you looking for him? Assassinate him? He's not easy to deal with. Wu Jueqing replied, How could that be? You know it too. The Dharma Supreme was also one of the tribulations back then. Most importantly, he also suffered the same misunderstandings as us brothers. Although I don't have any good feelings towards him. In fact, I even have a huge grudge against him for sneak attacking and using him. But in light of the fact that we were once tribulations, I feel that informing him and letting him put down the knot in his heart can also be considered as a form of justice among tribulations. If he can come to his senses and turn back, what's the little grudge between him and me? He smiled and said, more importantly, if the relationship between him and his brothers hasn't changed, then as long as the knot in his heart is untied, you will have one less obstacle. You will be able to unify the heavens with the smallest price. At the very least, the entire situation of the war in the Northwest will change instantly. Chu Yang was silent for a while. Then he said solemnly, no. Wu Jueqing asked curiously, no. In Wu Jueqing's opinion, this would only bring benefits and no harm to the overall situation. Chu Yang might be hesitant to evaluate the feasibility of this, but he didn't expect Chu Yang to reject it outright. Why? Yes, absolutely not. Chu Yang sucked in a breath of cold air and said, fortunately you didn't go. Fortunately, you came to ask for my opinion. If you really went, with Diwu Chochang's unfathomable schemes and various means, you might really never return. The possibility of you dying in his hands is 10,000%. Wu Jueqing sneered and said, bah, just him? If he really dares to argue with me, I'll give him a good thrashing. Chu Yang smiled faintly and said, one's cultivation is not everything. Let me give you an example. If you were to go and tell him the whole story, the Dharma Supreme would be greatly shaken and cry bitterly, regretting his past actions, and even wanting to commit suicide on the spot. What would you do? Then, he would be very grateful to you for telling him the truth, and even kneel down and kowtow to you. How would you feel at this moment? Then, he would hold your arm and reminisce with you, telling you about the past when he faced the tribulation. Would you reminisce with him? What do you mean by this? Of course he would be greatly shaken. It wouldn't be surprising for him to commit suicide. As for his gratitude to me afterward, it's also reasonable. I told him the truth about the greatest regret of his life. I can accept his kneeling down and kowtowing to me and reminiscing about the past. That's the only thing that I cherish. If that's the case, you would have died at least 3 times. The first time, he committed suicide and you tried to stop him. At the moment when you failed, and he was ready, you died. The second time he knelt down and kowtowed to you. You accepted his kowtow, and your heart was no longer prepared. The moment you helped him up, you would still die. The third time, the two of you reminisced about the past tribulations together. That's the thing that stirred your heart the most. Even if you were to attack him, you would still have done it. Don't doubt my words. The Dharma Supreme, Diwu Chochang, would definitely do that. Chu Yang said in relief. Fortunately, you didn't go. Fortunately, you came to discuss it with me. Otherwise, with your temper, you really wouldn't have been able to return. Wu Jueqing thought about it and couldn't help but break out in cold sweat. An old man who had lived for 40,000 years had a willpower that was 100 times stronger than ordinary people. In an instant, he had already sorted out the cause and effect, as well as the possible changes in the situation. If the Dharma Supreme had really done something like repenting first, committing suicide, thanking him, kowtowing to him and reminiscing about the past, with his temper, he would really resonate with him and become extremely melancholic. Perhaps even dying 3 times would be considered a minimum. If at that time, he was basically completely unguarded. If the Dharma Supreme launched any sneak attack, his chances of survival would indeed be infinitely close to 0. Diwu Chochang, the Dharma Supreme. Would he really do that? After all, he was also once one of the tribulations. After all, he also had a close relationship with his brothers. After all, he had also once experienced such heartbreaking trauma and such an unforgettable misunderstanding. Would he really? Wu Jueqing said sadly. Shouldn't he be happy that a lifelong regret and misunderstanding has been resolved? If I can do it, why can't he, who is also a tribulation, do it? Why? He's different from you. Completely different, 2 completely different concepts. Chu Yang said. Firstly, you were rescued because of your own fate, while he made use of the divine spirits of the other brothers to force himself to stay. In terms of results, he is the one who really sacrificed his brothers for his own sake. The main reason he was able to survive and come out was because he burned the divine spirits of his brothers to protect himself and set up a trap for them to save him alone. From this point of view, what he did back then was already a betrayal of all his brothers. Secondly, he now has the aura of the extraterrestrial demon hidden in his body. In essence, he is already not on the same path as all of you. Or rather, he is no longer human at all. Thirdly, he has been in charge of the heavens for 10,000 years. Chu Yang said deeply, power will cause a change in one's heart. The current Dharma Supreme, based on his way of doing things, is already sufficiently dark mentally, to the extent that it makes one's hair stand on end. Now even if his brothers still accept him, he no longer dares to, nor does he have the face to, enter that group again. Chu Yang finished in one breath and said, therefore don't go. Don't harbor any fantasies no matter what. Chu Yang was really thankful. Wu Juecheng, this noble lord from 40,000 years ago, still had the same temperament. Did he really think that just because he cared so much for others, he cared as much as he did for himself? Other things aside, the Dharma Supreme had already done such a series of things one after another. How could he be the same as Wu Juecheng? With Chu Yang's explanation, even Wu Juecheng himself broke out in cold sweat. Wiping away his sweat, he said, that was really close. Previously, I had really thought of leaving without saying goodbye to inform the Dharma Supreme. From the looks of it now, I'm practically sending myself to my death without a word. Chu Yang was speechless. If this old fellow wasn't one of the tribulations back then, how could he have survived? If he wasn't the descendant of supreme martial artist Chen Feng, how could he have survived? If he hadn't met Chu Yang, how could he have survived? It must be said that Wu Juecheng was really too lucky to be able to survive until now. Just the fact that he had survived was already heaven-defying. On the other side, Chu Luer was waiting in that secret place for Master Wu Juecheng's arrival. However, he didn't come. No matter how much she waited. No matter how much she waited, he still didn't come. Even though Luer's willpower was greater than that of an adult, she was after all only in her teens, and was still a half-grown child. Gradually, she became anxious, afraid that something might happen to her master. Gradually, she became restless. After all, before Wu Juecheng left, he had said that there would be a great battle this time. Luer, you don't have to be so worried about Elder Wu's safety. With Elder Wu's cultivation, there's already no one who can match him in this heavenly layer. There definitely won't be any accidents. Or perhaps he was delayed by something. He should be here in a while. Wan Renjia saw the anxiety in Chu Luer's heart, and couldn't help but comfort her. Chu Luer frowned and said, I also know that Master's cultivation is very high and there shouldn't be any accidents. But I'm afraid. Chapter 1497. I saw Dong Wuxiang. He's here too? Li Xiong too stood beside Mo Tianji, and spoke in a very solemn, yet seemingly casual tone. He clearly wanted to express something very formally, yet he said it very casually. He was not a scheming person to begin with, so doing this made others feel particularly uncomfortable. Oh! Mo Tianji raised his eyes, as if he didn't care at all about what Li Xiongtu said. I saw Dong Wuxiang in the battle. He's indeed powerful. He's invincible in the battle formation. And his current cultivation is higher than mine. Much higher. Very good, really good. He's much stronger than I expected. Li Xiongtu's eyes were filled with fanaticism. He said lightly, in the third heavens, some of you were not as good as me, and some of you were at most on par with me. But now, all of you should have surpassed me and become my goal. We are of the same generation. The worst thing in life is not having a goal to reach. And now, I have 10 goals. Li Xiongtu said. Congratulations. Rui Butong curled his lips. You actually have so many goals. Who do you think you can catch? This sentence was very sarcastic, and even very disapproving of it. Li Xiongtu snorted, and looked at Rui Butong. I can definitely catch up with you. I think the first one to catch up with me is you. When I catch up with you, I will beat you up so badly that even your mother can't recognize you. Rui Butong screamed in panic and jumped a step back. He patted his chest and said in a shrill voice, Oh my, I'm so scared. I'm a peak second-grade supreme martial artist. And today I'm being threatened by a fourth-grade supreme martial artist. I'm so scared, I'm so scared. Li Xiongtu's face was as black as the bottom of a pot. Rui Butong continued to panic. Ah, I heard such a terrifying threat. Should I nip the bud in the bud? Do you think I should just beat you to death? Or let you experience the feeling of even your mother doesn't recognize you? What if I beat you to death? Charcoal Head, why don't you give me a suggestion? Hee. Wait till you catch up to this supreme martial artist before you brag. The words Charcoal Head made Li Xiongtu's face even darker. He snorted and turned to leave. The high-level supreme martial artists of the Li clan were running back and forth. Everyone was gathering materials for the formation for Mo Tianji. Sighs could be heard everywhere. The gloomy look on Li Chuanbuo's face became more and more intense. Clearly the progress was not optimistic at all. At this moment, suddenly, someone came to report. Elder Ancestor, there's a young lady outside. She says her surname is Chu, and she's here to look for Mo Tianji. She had 3 attendants with her. All 4 of them are Supreme Being level experts. Li Chuanbuo frowned. Surname Chu? A young girl? A martial saint expert? Yes. Please come in. Li Chuanbuo said. The Allied forces shouldn't be so childish as to use such undercover methods, right? When Chu Luo stepped in, everyone in the court was attracted by this young girl. Although the little girl was only 14 or 15 years old, she had developed extremely well during this period of time. She was also under the meticulous care of Master Wu Jueqing and Big Brother Chu Yang. That kind of facial features that belonged to a peerless beauty, that kind of peerless beauty, had already started to show its power. In everyone's eyes, a young girl in white suddenly appeared from the sky full of flying snow and walked into the hall slowly. She came and went as if she was floating, untainted by worldly affairs. Although she was still young, her body hadn't fully matured yet, but that pure and holy aura was even more intense. It was as if a pure and true fairy had suddenly appeared in the world. Not only was she peerless in her beauty, but her features were so exquisite that they could cause the downfall of countries and cities. Moreover, because of the illness that had plagued her since she was young, although her chronic illness had already disappeared, there was still a kind of delicate and pitiful aura around her. She seemed to have suffered some grievances. Who could bear to let such a peerless beauty suffer grievances? They deserved to die. Everyone present felt their hearts ache at the same time. A strong feeling of wanting to protect and take care of her arose spontaneously. Although the mortals clearly knew that even the weakest divine immortal was much more powerful than them, and that it wasn't their turn to protect her at all, they couldn't help but think this way in their hearts. I'd rather die than let her be bullied. Even Li Chuanbuo's eyes couldn't help but flash with a strong sense of admiration. As for the others, it was naturally even more unbearable. Some of them even went into a daze. Everyone couldn't help but exclaim in their hearts, there's actually such a woman in this world. She's so beautiful that she gathers the essence of heaven and earth. The 2 evil brothers, Li Ju and Li Batian, instantly widened their eyes and opened their mouths. They looked at Chu Luo and were completely distracted for a moment. There was a kind of faint light flickering in the depths of their eyes. If such a beauty could be taken into a room, Li Chuanbuo already concluded with just one look. This girl definitely couldn't be a spy, because no one would bear to let such a girl be a spy. Even if it was a reckless waste of a heavenly treasure, it wouldn't be such a reckless waste. May I know who you are? Li Chuanbuo turned to look at the surroundings and asked in a gentle voice. Originally, this sentence shouldn't have been asked by him, the elder ancestor of the Li clan. However, at this moment, everyone in the hall seemed to have lost the ability to speak at the same time. His behavior was even more unbearable. If news of this got out, he would inevitably be despised. Even if he was already dead, his reputation would be much worse. Chu Luo smiled lightly and said, Thank you, Duke Li. As the Grand Duke of the Li clan, Li Ju wasn't usually someone who lusted after women. At least on the surface, he was still passable, and his self-cultivation was also quite good. He shouldn't have been emotional, but for some reason, after hearing Chu Luo's thanks, he actually felt as if his whole body was floating, as if even his bones were lighter. For a moment, He was so dazzled that he didn't even notice that his own ancestor's face had turned black. He didn't even notice that his own father was desperately trying to signal him with his eyes. "Miss, you're really too polite." Li Ju's smile became even more gentle and amiable, looking very understanding. "May I know your name, miss?" Although Chu Luer was young, she had been plagued with illness since she was young, and had really gone through a lot of suffering. Her wisdom had already far exceeded her actual age. Furthermore, she had a tribulation sword master as her elder brother, and a poison doctor from 40,000 years ago, Wu Jueqing, as her master. Her mind was really nimble, and could be said to be full of tricks, far surpassing that of ordinary people, especially because of her childhood illness. Even if it was said that she had seen all the ways of the world and experienced the vicissitudes of life, it wouldn't be an exaggeration. However, because of her experiences when she was young, her personality was also slightly extreme. At this moment, when she saw Li Ju approaching without knowing when to back down, she didn't even need to turn her eyes to know what this fellow was up to. She instantly felt disgusted, and a wave of anger rose in her. "Just based on your greasy hair and powdered face, you actually want to be lustful towards me? You're really blind." In a fit of anger, she wanted to poison this fellow to death. After thinking for a while, she forcefully suppressed it. Hearing Li Ju's words, there was still no anger on Luer's face. Instead, she rolled her eyes and smiled sweetly. She actually used the heaven enchanting technique that Zi Xieching had taught her and said, "My surname is Chu, but I can't tell you my name." This smile was really like the first blooming of a strange fetus, beautiful beyond compare. And her tone even had a hint of natural naivety, as if an underage girl was acting coquettishly. Li Ju was instantly lost. His eyes widened and his bones went soft. He actually said with a drooling face, "Why can't you tell me?" Chu Luer seemed to be slightly annoyed and reprimanded. How can a girl's name be casually told to a stranger? Between her annoyance and reprimand, her features were really picturesque and charming. Such a scene was really difficult to describe and write. Chapter 1498. Li Ju smiled enchantingly and said, "How am I a stranger? You're Mo Tianji's friend, so you're my friend too. Since we're friends, what's wrong with you telling me your name?" For a moment, he actually felt the thrill of flirting with her. Li Ju had a steady mind, and shouldn't have been so easily bewitched by Chu Lu. However, he had been dealt with a series of blows during this period of time. Moreover, the Li clan was in a life-and-death situation now. At this moment, he was completely unguarded against Chu Luer. Never would he have thought that such a beautiful young lady would actually plot against him. He fell for it instantly. Chu Luer smiled innocently again and said, "You're really unreasonable. I'm talking to that old man upstairs. I'll tell you after I'm done with him." "Okay." Her "okay" was even more melodious and soul-stirring. At this moment, Li Ju felt as if all the bones in his body had melted. He almost collapsed like a pile of mud thrown into water. Very responsibly, he waved his hand and said disdainfully, "What's there to talk about with that old man? Don't bother about him. My father always says that that old bastard is very annoying. If he doesn't allow me to do this, I can't do that either. He has 100 or 1,000 rules and regulations. He always has his reasons. You'd better tell me first. What's your name? Good younger sister, just tell me." In his infatuation, he even called her good younger sister. The moment these words came out, the entire hall of the Li clan instantly fell into silence. Almost everyone present couldn't believe what they had heard. Pairs of eyes also bulged out in that instant. What did the Grand Duke say just now? Aye. Is there something wrong with my ears? Right now, everyone didn't feel anything about that extremely frivolous good younger sister anymore. What they felt was the first few sentences. They were really too earth-shattering. They were really earth-shattering sentences. Old bastard, old fool, old fogey. In an instant, Li Wubua's face turned ghastly pale. Beads of sweat the size of soybeans started to form on his forehead. His eyes were wide open, yet he felt that everything before him was pitch black. This is my son? My dear son. How is this my son? This was simply an ancestor who wanted to kill them. I'm done for. I've been played to death by this ancestor today, and he didn't even leave me a way out. What was a scam? Here was the most perfect and realistic interpretation. This was the real deal, the real deal, the real deal. Ah. And it wasn't just a little bit of a scam. Li Chuanbo, who was sitting high up, was currently shrouded in a storm of murderous aura that could erupt at any moment. Everyone lowered their heads, fearing that they would be caught in the crossfire if they came into contact with their ancestors' murderous gaze. Chu Luo still felt unsatisfied. She tilted her head and blinked her large eyes innocently with the suspicion of a young girl. He asked she's not even close to you. How can you call her little sister? Is what you said true? Did your father really say that? Isn't that old man your ancestor? At this moment, Li Ju was already deep in the illusion of the heaven enchanting technique. He felt that he was wise and mighty. Hearing this, he waved his hand valiantly. His movements were natural and smooth. He let out a hearty laugh. Bullshit ancestor. Isn't he just an old guy who won't die? What's there to fake? What kind of person is my father? My father is vile spawn. Li Wubo finally roared. A mouthful of blood spurted out from his mouth. Trembling, he shouted in grief and indignation, Li Ju, you vile spawn. When did I say that? I've fucking been scammed to death. His tone was panicked and his heart was bleeding. He was anxious, scared and terrified. Even his lips were trembling, and his entire body was shaking. For a moment, he felt that even his tongue was numb from fear. He couldn't even say the words he wanted to say to defend himself. Son, please don't call me father. Can I call you father? I can even call you ancestor. But please don't say too much. Li Chuanbo cast a cold glance at him and shouted, shut your mouth. Let him speak. Continue. In the main hall of the Li clan, everyone's faces were green, and their lips were pale. They looked at Li Ju and Li Wubo's father with shock, as if they had seen a ghost. How gutsy. Damn, he's the clan leader indeed. He's the Grand Duke indeed. Damn, he really doesn't care about anything and dares to say anything. Chu Luo pursed her lips and smiled. She quietly removed the heaven enchanting charm. Lecher, I'll torture you to death. At this moment, Li Ju finally came to his senses. Recalling what he had done and said just now, he broke out in cold sweat almost instantly. Even his outer robes were drenched. His eyes were already in a daze. He only felt that his heart was beating like a drum in his chest. Thump, 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 thump. As if it could jump out of his chest the next moment. Oh my God, what did I say just now? It seems like. It can't be. It really seems like. Oh my God, I'm going to die. In that instant, he felt as if the world was spinning. He turned around in a daze and saw that everyone in the main hall was looking at him, as if they were looking at an idiot. Moreover, it was the kind of idiocy that made one admire them. He had seen idiots before, but he had never seen such an idiot. This was the god of idiocy. It was enough to make all the idiots in the world worship him. The only one who was different from the rest was his father. At this moment, he was lying limply on the floor of the main hall, looking at him, as if he was a son who had committed a grave mistake. He was looking at his own father in shock and horror. Li Ju shuddered violently and opened his hands. His 10 fingers spread apart uncontrollably as he cried out in panic. I didn't say those words. It really wasn't me. Everyone covered their faces in unison. If it wasn't you, could it be me? Under the watchful eyes of more than 100 supreme martial artists, you actually dared to swallow back the words you said? In that instant, everyone felt as if 10,000 alpacas were galloping across their hearts. What the heck? They didn't realize that their Grand Duke was actually such a weirdo in the past. Li Chuanbo was so angry that he laughed instead. Good, good, good. After saying good 3 times in a row, he said in a gentle tone. Tell me, if you didn't say those words, then who did? Li Ju shuddered all over. Suddenly, he came back to his senses and pointed at Chu Luo. The veins on his temples bulged as he roared. She said it. She said it. Demoness. She is a demoness. He rushed up to Li Chuanbo, turned around and pointed at Chu Luo while trembling. Elder Master, she said it, she said it. At this moment, Grand Duke Li was already somewhat neurotic. It was obvious that he had turned the goddess that he admired so much just a moment ago into a life-saving straw. As long as he could save his own life, What was a woman to him? Shut up. Li Chuanbo finally couldn't hold it in any longer and shouted fiercely. This shout was like a sudden clap of thunder on a sunny day. Outside, a snowy peak thousands of feet away exploded with a bang. Li Ju stood there in a daze. Suddenly, he glared fiercely at Chu Lu'er and roared in grief and indignation. Demoness, you actually dared to set me up. I will kill you. I will kill you. I will definitely kill you. He was about to rush up and risk his life. Wan Renjie and the other two behind Chu Lu'er were furious and wanted to stop him. Chu Lu'er stopped the three of them with one hand. She puffed out her chest and asked proudly, You dare to touch me? Although her body was frail, the aura she exuded at this moment was inviolable and inviolable. There was no trace of her delicate appearance from before. Instead, she exuded the bearing of a supreme master. Even though Li Ju's mind had already sunk into madness, he could still feel the mountain-like pressure, and the pressure that was strong enough to threaten his life. He stopped abruptly and said angrily, Why wouldn't I dare to touch you? Why wouldn't I dare to touch you? The more he spoke, the angrier he got. He was angry that he was actually frightened by the little girl in front of him. He walked forward step by step and said fiercely, Tell me, you caused me to be in this state. Why wouldn't I dare to touch you? Chu Lu'er sneered and looked at him walking forward with a cold gaze. She said with some disdain, Putting aside the fact that I have the strength of a supreme martial artist, and you don't have the ability to touch me, I will fulfill your wish just now. Didn't you want to know my name? Let me tell you, my surname is Chu. I am Chu Lu'er. My brother is the Tribulation Sword Master. You dared to touch me. Li Ju was instantly stunned. Everyone in the hall was also stunned. Chu Lu'er, the sister of the Tribulation Sword Master. Chu Yang being the Tribulation Sword Master was no secret in the Li clan. Of course, everyone knew this. When they heard this, especially the last sentence, they were still shocked. Many of them thought, if the Grand Duke really loses his mind and acts rashly, we must quickly stop him. If he really hurts the sister of the Tribulation Sword Master, then the Li clan would really be finished. Not to mention other things. Once Mo Tianji left, the Li clan's last hope would be gone. The entire Li clan would be at a loss. The entire clan would die without a burial place. Li Ju stood there stuttering, unable to advance or retreat. His eyes were also bloodshot, reaching the legendary state of blood in the pupils. Although he had reached this legendary state, he still didn't dare to take a step forward. He could only gasp for breath. He knew that if he dared to take a step forward now, he would probably be dismembered by his own family members, before he could even do anything. He didn't step forward. Instead, Chu Lu'er took a step forward and said coldly, Let me tell you, my uncle is Yu Lingxue, and my aunt is Feng Yuro. You dare to touch me? Bullying others with her power. This little girl was obviously bullying others with her power now. Everyone's mind was blown again. Moon Breeze. 2 peak-level supreme martial artists. Oh my god, this girl's backing is so strong, so strong. Li Ju's head was full of cold sweat. He couldn't help but take a step back. He hissed, You are bullying others with your power. To be able to force the first successor of a big clan to say, You are bullying others with your power. If it was in the past, it would be the biggest joke in the world. So funny that it was unbelievable. But now it really existed. Chu Lu'er took another step forward and said coldly, Bullying others with my power? I am bullying you with my power. What can you do? Do you dare to touch me? Chapter 1499. Li Ju's face was ghastly pale. He didn't even seem to know how to tremble. His eyes rolled back. He was both angry and aggrieved. He was also angry but didn't dare to flare up. He also felt a little wronged. He was almost about to faint on the spot. You actually want to touch me? Chu Lu'er had never been one to settle things peacefully. In this aspect, she was greatly influenced by her master Wu Jueqing. Otherwise, she wouldn't have dealt with Li Ju in such a way out of disgust. If you hit someone, you have to beat them to death. You have to be fearsome. This was her master's teaching. Kind people will be bullied. Any provocation and conspiracy must be blasted to death, to eliminate future troubles. This was her big brother's teaching. How could she let Li Ju off now? She took another step forward and smiled. Right, my master is the poison Dr. Wu Jiuecheng. You dare to touch me? All the supreme martial artists of the Li clan were petrified. Damn it, this girl's background wasn't finished yet. Each one was scarier than the last. This time, even Li Chuanbuo's countenance changed a little. She was actually Wu Jiuecheng's disciple. Right, he heard that Wu Jiuecheng had once taken a girl with the surname Chu as his disciple. Her name seemed to be Chu Luer. That was a super big shot who had dominated the world for 40,000 years. If we were to really talk about seniority, this little girl in front of me is almost unparalleled in this world. She seems to be at least 2 or 3 generations older than me. At this moment, Li Ju was already on the verge of breaking down. Even his mind was in a daze. Chu Luer snorted. She raised her little nose and said, "My sister's masters are Ning Tianya and Bu Luqing. You dare to touch me?" He was extremely happy. That little girl also wants to be my sister-in-law. Be obedient and be my sister. All right, even Li Chuanbuo was dizzy. If they really offended this little girl, not to mention the allied army outside, just the people that this little girl mentioned would come together. The Li clan could only end up with a tragic fate of having their throats slit. What kind of people were these names? How many top experts in the entire heavens couldn't be offended? The little girls registered their names one by one. It seemed that other than the Dharma Supreme, everyone else had basically gathered here. If Li Ju was cheating his father just now, he was cheating his ancestors, and the entire Li clan now. Li Ju, who was originally on the verge of breaking down, would completely break down now. With a plop, he sat on the ground. He just sat on the ground in a daze, his eyes glazed over. It was obvious that he was thinking about something. Li Chuanbuo sighed deeply. What a disgrace. With a slap, he sent Li Ju flying into a corner of the hall. Now, Li Chuanbuo was so disgusted that he didn't even have the heart to kill Li Ju anymore. It was really killing would dirty one's hands. He didn't even say a word about punishing him, but everyone clearly knew. Li Wubuo. From now on, Li Ju and his father would be in the entire Li family. There was no longer a place for them to stand. My family is unfortunate to have such an unfilial grandson. I'm sorry to have embarrassed myself in front of you, Li Chuanbuo said with a long sigh. Chu Luer smiled and said, "You're too polite, elderly. It's normal to have a few prodigals in a big family." She smiled gently. He said, "This matter is most likely due to my daughter's lack of self-restraint, but it is due to her innate temperament. Please don't take offense, elderly. I just can't stand those lecherous fellows. I have to punish every one of them that I see." Chu Luer said, "When the Li clan is on the brink of destruction, it's even more unbearable for someone to have lecherous thoughts at this juncture." "You're right, Mississippi," Li Chuanbuo clicked his tongue in wonder. The little girl looked to be at most 14 or 15 years old, but the words that she said and the things that she did were rare even for an experienced martial artist. Chu Luer smiled sweetly and said, "You're too polite, old master. If this grandson of yours can really make my elder brother, uncle, aunt, and teacher not dare to utter a word, it's fine for me to be his concubine." This sentence made the corners of Li Chuanbuo's mouth twitch. The other supreme martial artists of the Li clan even had the urge to faint collectively. This little grand aunt really knew how to slap people in the face. Her way of doing things was too brazen. Look at how easily she said it, making the tribulation sword master, tribulation, Yu Lingxue, Feng Yuro and Wu Jiuecheng not dare to utter a word. Damn it, looking at the current situation, even if all the great clans were to band together, and the law enforcement officers were to work together, they still wouldn't be able to do it. Li Chuanbuo smiled bitterly and said, "Miss, you must be joking. But I wonder where your teacher and your uncle and aunt are now." When elderly asked this, everyone's eyes lit up instead. That's right. Now that this little girl had appeared here, if these 3 experts that basically no one in the upper 3 heavens dared to offend were also here, wouldn't the Li clan's crisis be easily resolved? At least they wouldn't have to face the crisis of the entire clan being annihilated, right? My uncle and aunt are naturally overseeing the Chu clan in the southeast, but the clan can't do without them. Chu Luer was clever. How could she not know what they were planning? She smiled sweetly and said, "My teacher isn't here either. To be honest, I don't know where he is now either. I just heard that the war here is very fun. So I came to look for Mo Tianji to play. Very fun. Come to play. This time, not to mention the other supreme martial artists of the Li clan, even Li Chuanbo was speechless. Everyone in the clan had already fucked up to this point, and this little girl actually thought that it was very fun and wanted to come and play. Li Chuanbo smiled helplessly and said, I see. I'll get someone to send you to military advisor Mo right away. Thank you, old master. Chulor chuckled. She regained her original age and the most innocent smile of a girl. Luor's impression of this old man Li Chuanbo was still quite good. This was because everyone's eyes were shining with hope, hoping that their teacher could lend a helping hand to the Li clan. However, only Li Chuanbo's eyes didn't have any utilitarian colors. Watching Chu Lu'er and the rest leave, Li Chuanbo let out a long sigh. Before life and death, strength of character is important. Before benefits, perseverance is important. Before death, filial piety is important. Before beauty, character is important. Our Li clan has lasted for a whole 10,000 years, and finally reached the end of its rope. How can there be no reason for this? The current clan leader is a traitor, and the first successor is even frivolous, lustful, and a coward. It is truly the most miraculous thing in the world that such a clan can continue to survive. No one in the Li clan dared to speak. Li Chuanbo looked at Li Wubo and Li Ju with extreme disgust. He said, expel these two from my reserve team, and put them in the first wave of battle formation. Since they're going to die sooner or later, let them do their last bit for the clan. That way, they won't have to die in my hands. Everyone wanted to say something, but Li Chuanbo had already shouted, take them away. Don't let me see them again. They don't deserve it. Two elders helped the pale-faced Li Ju and Li Wubo to their feet and helped them out. This time, both father and son had their heads lowered. No one could see the deep-rooted hatred in their eyes. Mo Tianji was standing under a plum blossom tree in the courtyard. He narrowed his eyes slightly and looked at the falling snow in the sky. Xian, we should really let Xie Danxiong take a good look at these snowflakes. Mo Tianji suddenly thought of something and said, huh? What? What are you talking about? What's so nice about these snowflakes? They're all the same. Ao Xian was a little confused. Xie Danxiong is looking at viburnum flowers every day now. They're not as nice as these. They're the same, different. They're completely different. My mind was clear just now. After looking at over 30,000 snowflakes, I discovered something very interesting. Mo Tianji chuckled and said, I observed over 30,000 snowflakes. There's actually no two snowflakes that are exactly the same shape. Ao Xian was very interested. Really? This is quite interesting. After saying that, he also looked over. Mo Tianji said, from this, it can be inferred that the entire northwest region has been snowing nonstop for tens of thousands of years. There are at least trillions of snowflakes falling every moment. However, since ancient times, there's no two snowflakes that are exactly the same shape. In other words, snowflakes have an infinite number of shapes and sizes. The wonders of heaven and earth are truly breathtaking. Mo Tianji's eyes were deep in thought as he sighed softly. Ao Xian looked for a while and indeed, he didn't find any similarities. He said, that's true. However, this isn't a big deal, is it? They're just snowflakes. They can be turned into nothingness with a casual pinch. Mo Tianji smiled. You still don't understand what I mean. To us, snowflakes can indeed be turned into nothingness with a casual pinch. However, you should know that our double heavens continent may be something that can be turned into nothingness with a casual pinch in the eyes of some people. Ao Xian's expression was a little confused. What? This time, I really don't understand what you're talking about. Mo Tianji chuckled. I'm just thinking, in the eyes of others, is our double heavens continent just a piece of falling snowflake? Falling from a high altitude until landing is the end. This process may be long, or it may be very short. To us, it may be tens of thousands of years. However, in the eyes of some powerful people, is it just a blink of an eye? At this moment, we're on this tiny piece of snowflake. As we fall, we don't even feel it. We're still carrying out that laughable battle of life and death in the eyes of others. Ao Xian was getting more and more confused. He only felt that Emotianji was crazy and talking nonsense. He said, "Forget it, your theory is too profound. You've really impressed me. How can there be such a thing? Even if the double heavens were folded, it wouldn't be a piece of snowflake." Emotianji chuckled and didn't refute. However, his expression became even more serious. He was deep in thought. Not a piece of snowflake. Once the double heavens collapsed, in this universe, what was the difference between it and a piece of snowflake? It was silent, but there were footsteps coming from afar. "Someone's here," Emotianji said softly and turned around with Aoshiyun. At this moment Chuluor was in front, and she stepped through the door. "You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure."